Josh, how's your Friday? How are you?
Friday morning is going well. A little gluttonous from Thanksgiving here in America yesterday. Put on a few extra pounds from the turkey and mashed potatoes and everything, but we'll work it off today.
Yeah, I imagine it's not a fully packed day with meetings and coaching clients today.
Not today. No, today's a relaxation day.
Cool, man. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Indiana in the US, but I'm at my in-laws' house. So I'm just finding the space to be able to be on with you this morning and have a great conversation.
Love it, man. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Productivity Mastery. Thanks for joining us once again. Another exciting guest. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself, like the short 2 minute introduction? Who are you and what do you do these days?
Well, first of all, I always say when I ask for this introduction, I want to know who the person is. So who I am is a follower or child of Christ. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an entrepreneur, and most of all, I love to coach entrepreneurs and help them build the most fantastic leadership teams possible.
So let's start unveiling your story, I think. And by the way, for those of you listening, Josh, can you show us the book? Can you show us the book? Just recently published a book, the Kairos Code. And we'll talk about it. And if you guys have any questions, please post them in the comments. But before we get there, Josh, I want you, if you can give us a little bit of a overview about you spent more than 16 years in a company. What was the company all about? Was your role there? And like, just give us the story and how did you end up leaving the company?
Yeah, so at age 24, I joined this company as a financial advisor. And in that world, we were actually uh, owned our own business. We're fully commission and fee-based advisors. And then I end up succeeding my father, buying him out as the managing partner or CEO of the firm in 2016. And I was 35 years old at that point. I was the youngest appointed managing partner in the company or in the country, and we were having a lot of fun growing the business, having a big impact. So at that point, I grew it to 250 employees. We were managing $4 billion in assets, and I always explained it to the outside looking in. I was like a hybrid between a regional vice president and a franchise owner. Like if I wasn't doing the job, I know that I could be terminated, but so long as I was doing the job, they continued to pay me, and I owned the business. And if I was ever terminated, they would have to buy me out. I never once thought that I could be doing the job extremely well and have the rug pulled out from underneath me, but that's what happened in 2021 when I had a cancerous employee on my team that decided to sue me, and the overarching company, the Fortune 100 company, decided to terminate me to get themselves out of the lawsuit. So then I find myself in 6 months of legal negotiations with that company and negotiating my exit and essentially starting my life all over.
Was that an employee that you hired
Yeah.
before?
It was actually an employee I hired, I mentored, I taught him everything I knew, and, unfortunately for me, one of my mistakes in this, because there's always things that we can learn no matter what the circumstances are, is that I kept chalking up immaturity in him, and I've developed plenty of immature people into high-functioning adults and advisors. So part of my ego was thinking I could do the same. The problem was it wasn't immaturity, there were actual character flaws that I wasn't seeing in this person. I just kept hoping and seeing for the best in them and not recognizing that these were actual character flaws that weren't going to change and that were causing cancer in the organization.
So if you have a time machine, you can go back to 2016 and you can give yourself some leadership advice. What would that be?
Oh man, let's go back to 2019, he delivered me an ultimatum. And for anyone that's in a position where, well, actually, it doesn't even matter a work position, it could be a spousal position, delivering an ultimatum in a negotiation of sorts is never the proper thing to do. It is never going to get you what you want. In fact, it's probably going to enrage your spouse or your boss even more. And so in 2019, when he delivered that ultimatum, I should have terminated him on the spot. The writing was on the wall.
And when it comes to hiring and picking the right people, now I imagine now you have a team with a new venture. Is that something that you kind of learned? You're like, okay, I'm not only going to hire on skill and potential, but I have to also look for character traits more carefully.
Yeah, yeah. So that's actually a great question because it has led me to understand a lot about narcissists, and narcissism is running rampant. For those that have ever dealt with a narcissist or narcissistic personality disorder, it is a big problem. And men and women can both have this. It's not secluded to one gender, if you will. But one thing I've learned is to interview for that. One thing that I've learned is that narcissists cannot accept blame. So, like Stoyan, you and I could have a conversation. We could be in an argument, and I could sit here and go, "Yeah, he's 80% at fault," but I could see the 20% that I played in this, right? And have a rational conversation. A narcissist, 100% is someone else's fault. They are never to blame. And so that being said, one of the things to interview for in these conversations as you're digging in on character and want to know about narcissists is ask them about a past conflict with a colleague of theirs. How did that situation get resolved? What you're looking for is do they accept any responsibility or any blame? Ask them about a past conflict with a superior of theirs. You're trying to see, do they accept any responsibility or blame, or do they push it all off? Because that's what a narcissist will do. A narcissist is brilliant at kind of forming the world around their selfish desires. And so they can show up in an interview as seeming like the brightest star. And it's you got to dig under those layers and try and see some red flags before you bring them into your organization. Because if they get into your organization, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or 3 years, those narcissistic traits they can't help themselves will start coming out.
It's still tough though, you know. We talk about it, but like when they come to an interview, the candidates, you see somebody that's super bright and you immediately see the potential. It's kind of difficult to spot. So what else can you right now you probably have a bigger, detector. What else
Yeah.
can you do in order to spot that somebody, maybe not to expand it, not just narcissist, but somebody who has toxic toxic character traits? How do we spot these people before we get to hire them and get them on board?
Yeah, I want to know about their upbringing as well. So I've done somewhere in between 1,000 and 2,000 interviews in my life. And the ways that we can dig in a little bit for is I always asked about their parents. Now, there's certain things like in the corporate world, there's certain questions you can't ask. So I understand that, and you'll have to run this through HR. I was hiring in a different world where they're independent financial advisors. So there's some questions that I can ask that others possibly could not. So just double check here for your own sakes. But what I always want to do is dig in on their parents. Did they have both mom and dad in their life? And then tell me about mom and how she raised you. Tell me about dad, how he raised you. What is one of the key values or traits that they taught you growing up that you still hold on to today? I'm looking for what values do they hold to be true in there? Do those values match our organizational values, our cultural values? I want to dig in on that. I want to dig in on how was the if they played sports, what from their coaching, what's a trait or value that they held on to there? Was there ever a conflict with a coach? How did you work through that conflict? Again, trying to dig in and on are they accepting any blame or responsibility for any actions in their life? So these are some questions to dig in on. The other thing that to deal with, like let's say one gets into your organization, because people slip through the cracks, people can sell you the dream and you think the best of them because I think good people want to see the best in others. Um, only deal in facts with narcissists. They want to play the emotional and drag you into the emotional mess, and they have far more experience than you do in that emotional, erratic world. So if you play into their hand and get down into that mess, you're going to lose. So only deal in facts. and be very poignant and short in your email correspondence with such a person with just facts. Do not bite on the emotional bullet they're trying to get you to bite on.
That's super helpful, man. Thanks a lot. I've been getting to know you a little bit. I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago preparing for the podcast, and then I'm having you here today, and I have to say you're very successful but very humble person. Your energy is this humble, giving person. That's what I'm getting at least. But then you mentioned a few minutes ago that you were probably dealing with your ego back in the time that you were dealing with this guy. How did you, at least from my perspective, you've you've grown from what you're explaining to today. How did you manage to manage your ego?
Yeah. Well, I would say that so ego doesn't mean necessarily arrogant, right? We all have a sense of ego, and I think that all successful people have to have some level of ego to get to whatever level of success they're trying to get to. Um, I always say that arrogance, outward arrogance, is an inner lack of security. So if we've ever been around a, cocky, arrogant person, really they have a hurt inner child inside of them, and they're overplaying, their quote unquote confidence, but it's not confidence, it's arrogance. So you can have a healthy ego and a high level of confidence without being arrogant. So I do want to say that, but I think that we should always be growing. We never arrive. And so, I can certainly say in my mid to late 20s, I had a big hubris ego, because the older I get, the older I get, the more I realize I really don't know. And in my 20s, in my, mid to late 20s, I thought I knew everything and had the world by the balls and just it's just that hubris, right? And then you grow and you realize and you make some mistakes and you're sitting there going, "Man, there's way too much I don't know." And so being very confident in what you do know, and also one of the most confident things you can say is, "I don't know, and I'll find out." Because now we're in the information age. So if I don't have the answer, I have infinite resources around me at my fingertips or through coaches or mentors or other friendships that I've created where I can find out the answer and get back to you within 24 hours. But being able to say the three words that are so hard for egotistical people to say, I don't know, is a very humble thing to be able to do.
What happened when you were given the news and you've been going through this legal lawsuit for, like you said, six months? Then it's probably been very difficult, and a lot of the listeners, everybody obviously listening, is going through difficult times. Um, and I wonder what were the lessons like? What do you do when you're going through such a difficult time? I mean, you've been working on this for years and years, building the company, you've been building the team, and at some point everything just collapses. Well, how were you feeling at that point? And what did you do to pick yourself up?
I was devastated. Like my whole world just got flipped upside down. It was everything I ever knew. Um, I bought my father out. I was his legacy, so there was a lot of shame and guilt and depressive thoughts. I hesitate in saying that I was in a depression, but I was definitely in a dark spot. I didn't require any medication or anything of that nature. So what do? You go through it. That's the number one lesson I pulled away from it was the only way out is through. And so I was going through the 5 stages of grief, and I'll tell this to any entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you have a happy sale or a sad sale like mine, you lose that purpose in your life. And all of a sudden, we're wired for purpose, hardwired from God. And so when that purpose is removed, whether it was a joyous sale or a sad sale of the business, you're left with going, what's next? And so I was being recruited by all the financial firms throughout America. And every time I took a meeting, just something felt off. And so it was a lot of prayer and just reflection on my back patio. Usually I'd have a fine cigar and a glass of bourbon. And I was just sitting there working through working through these thoughts, working through and processing why these things weren't feeling right. And God was basically telling me that I've accomplished everything in that industry. It's time to set a different trail. I'm like, all right, what is that? And so I started going down this path and really took time. So those 6 months I was in that legal battle, as hard as it was to not have a purpose, as hard as the instance was and everything being stripped away from me, it was also one of the greatest blessings. And so I say to people now, whether you go through a business issue like I went through, or you go through a life issue of losing a loved one or battling an illness, whatever it may be, none of us are getting out of this unscathed. But sometimes we can actually let the worst things that happen to us be the best things that happen for us. And that's what I wanted this instance to be. My plan was to run that company from age 35 to 55, grow it as big as possible, have as much impact as possible, but God had other plans. He ripped that rug out from underneath me at 41 and said, I got a different path for you now. And so you have to lean into that and go through the fire and come out the other side.
Do you have any tactical tip for the people listening that might be going through a difficult time? We had, for example, a guest, Mark Harrison. Shout out to Mark Harrison, one of the first guests on the podcast. Now it's episode 231. Um, and he told me every time he's going through a tough time, he had this mental trigger. He would write on a piece of paper the letters DFS, and that meant deal from strength, which reminded him that he needs to act from a higher space and kind of center him. And I wonder if you have any kind of tactical tips on if you lose your mind in the pain, what do you do? What would you?
Yeah. Well, first, I love that he said something about writing something down because my coach encouraged me to journal. And at first, I wasn't ever like I'd always heard the power of journaling. I just never did it. I wasn't against it by any means. I just never took the time to do it. And so I responded back to him. I was like, "You just want me to write down all my shitty thoughts?" He's like, "Well, kinda, yeah." It's like he goes, "Josh, let me put it to you this way: you will never have these exact emotions again. Capture them." And a large part of that journal ended up in my book. And I now affectionately dubbed it the pain journal. Like I really wanted people to experience how dark of a spot I was in and how I got myself out. And then one of the other pieces that's tactical that I actually included in the book as well is I created a T chart. But unlike having assets and liabilities on the T chart or pros and cons, I made it a different set of T chart. Was on the left side, I wrote, what did I love about my previous world? My previous role, and on the right side, what did I hate? And I made both lists. And at the end of the piece of paper, I wrote down a question. What if I could design a world that I only did the stuff that I loved? And on the right side, if I could eliminate or mitigate that whole list. And that's where I started building the plan to build a coaching company because I loved pouring into people. I loved helping them see visions bigger than they saw for themselves. I loved helping mentor them out of tough spots or mentor them from spots that I've been in and made mistakes before and help them avoid those mistakes. I loved all those things. I was like, so, all right, well, let me coach and speak. And the book came 2 years later. Like I never intended on being a writer. So it was just for me was like when God put it on my heart 2 years later, he was like, these lessons that I taught you on this dark spot weren't just for you. And so that's when I started forming the book to be able to give back to the world. So hopefully people can avoid some of the mistakes and lessons that I had to learn the hard way. They can learn them through me.
It's beautiful, man. Are you using this T chart not just professionally, but also in a personal context?
Well, for me, because of my work intertwined so much with my personal life, I use it kind of in duality. Is like we do so much of our lives in work. I feel like we all need to and deserve to get to a spot that we love the work that we do and we're great at doing it. And so I actually teach this matrix, and it came from EOS. And I know EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System is kind of spreading across Europe as we speak, but it's really popular for entrepreneurs here in the US. And it's called the Delegate and Elevate tool. And we first list out all of our weekly tasks, like what takes up our time on a weekly, and then we put in 4 quadrants. The upper left is the work that we love to do and we're great at doing. The upper right is we kind of like it, we're kind of good at it. The bottom left is we don't like it, but we're good at it. And the bottom right, as you might imagine, is we don't like it and we're not good at it. So after we have that quadrant filled out, we can actually then delegate the stuff we don't like and we're not good at. But our safe house activities are that bottom left. We don't like it, but we're good at it. And the reason I call them safe house activities is because this is where 95% of the world exists. And that's why we see so many miserable people walking the face of the earth is because they found work or they got a degree in something and they they said they had to go into that field. They don't really like it, but they're kind of good at it and it's providing that paycheck. And they just haven't gotten outside of their bubble or got some coaching or just heard a different perspective to go, hey, there's actually a world for you that you love the work that you do and you're great at doing it. And you just got to be able to find what that is because I believe everyone deserves to reside there because the world would be so much more joyful if we could all find work that we love to do and we're great at doing.
Entrepreneurship has been like the sexy thing for the past maybe 10, 15 years. Maybe not before, but for the past 10, 15 years, it's kind of like, we look up to entrepreneurs. Feel like, hey, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Would you advise everybody, because we're talking about do the work you love, would you advise everybody that entrepreneurship is the road, or what's your take on that?
No, absolutely not. Entrepreneurship is the hardest thing anyone will ever do. And the internet has glorified it like it's the spot for everyone. So it is 100% not for everyone. Now, a term that is kind of popular in my circles is called intrapreneur. And this is someone, I have two people on my team that I would deem as intrapreneurs. They have all the skill sets to be an entrepreneur. They're very driven. I don't have to manage them much. Like they know their role and they do that role extremely well and they love the work that they do. That being said, they might be risk averse with money. They may not have the CEO competencies that I have of having led firms and just have those leadership traits. Something doesn't align for them to start their own business. But so what they found is a leader in me that allows them to operate in their positions like an entrepreneur, but they don't have the risk. I have the risk. Right. So it's finding a leader that you can get in and do the work that you love to do and you're great at doing. And they have a big vision that you can fit your vision inside of. And you don't have to take the risk that most entrepreneurs have to take. Entrepreneurship is 100% the hardest thing anyone will ever do. I know it's been sexified or whatever on the internet, but it is not for everyone. It's for the small majority, or I'm sorry, small minority.
No, I feel you, man. Everybody who starts doing, the first couple of months, you do the logo, the vision, everything is so nice, and then the reality hits, and everybody goes through struggles, difficulties, bankruptcies, even the most successful ones. And I think sometimes we don't talk about how small percentage of all the entrepreneurs actually successful and how much there was a study. I'm not sure about this study because I haven't read it in detail, but there was a study that the level of stress and depression is much bigger in areas like Silicon Valley that are there's a lot of entrepreneurs in these areas, suicidal rates and so on. So don't quote me on that. Go check it out. But there's definitely some tendencies that huge amounts of stress, uh, depression, and so many other things around entrepreneurship. Doesn't mean that it's not a cool thing. If that's the thing for you, definitely go for it. Try it out. Or for some people, it might be the case that they still want to have a paycheck and the secure kind of full-time job, but then do something on the side if the company allows them to.
Yeah.
So that might be another kind of road, or do a little bit of a coaching, consulting. Talking about coaching and consulting, by the way, um, correct me if I'm wrong, but last time we spoke, you said, I have joy working with entrepreneurs and helping people that are building. Why is that passion for you, and what do you help these people with? Do you help them because you have a lot of experience in the business world? Is it helping them with consulting them on the business? Is it more the inner work, or is it the combination?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I said to you is that I don't have a passion for corporate life, and I do have a passion for helping entrepreneurs. And I want to explain that because I had an overarching corporate over my business, even though I owned it in my previous world. And there were so many politics and just games being played in the corporate level. And I know that's prevalent, but I just don't find joy. I want to work with the people that can inflict real change, real time. And that's what entrepreneurs do. And so beyond that, I believe that entrepreneurs are really the lifeblood of America. And I just don't know the world. I can't say the world because I don't know the world's economic patterns as well. But I do know America's patterns and the small businesses that start up and actually provide jobs in smaller communities across the United States. Like that's like those businesses that are just hit $1 million mark, just hit $10 million mark, are striving to go to 50 to 100, like those people that we can inflict real change, real time. I just find so much joy in being able to move at that speed. Whereas in a corporate world, it was like, hey, that's a great idea, Stoyan, but we need to run it past this committee and this committee and this committee before we actually make a decision. I don't live like that. I don't have the patience for that. So I would rather work with the entrepreneur and their leadership teams. And to answer your final question, I actually, when I do a discovery call with coaching clients, I want them to know that we're not going to just talk about business. Like, my part of my bridges, part of my life's work is to make sure that people are having and enjoying their life as much outside of their business and winning outside of their business as much as they are inside their business. Because we've seen too many entrepreneurs that are on their third marriage, have estranged relationship with their kids, are masking pain with alcohol or drugs, and or running a financial mess for someone to clean up later. And so I want to make sure that we're having an integrated life and the things that matter most, like your spouse, like your kids, like your health, um, should not be sacrificed for the growth of the business. So I said, if you want a coach that's just business, just mindset, or just performance, I'm not your guy because I'm going to challenge you on your relationship with your spouse. I'm going to challenge you on your relationship with your physical body, your mental health, and your emotional health. And we go deep.
So do you offer some sort of packages like, hey, this certain amount of sessions we do together, or your approach is a little bit more depending on the situation you can get in and they get you on board, you have their back. What's the way you like to work?
No, typically we do, if it's a one-on-one coaching scenario, it's usually twice a month and it's you and I on a screen, or if you're local, then we'll sit out at my farm. But it's 2 times a month where we're diving deep. I always have them come in with at least one topic that they want to make sure that in our time together that we cover and solve. And then I'll always have some stuff as well. But I want them to drive the meeting on what's most important in their world that we drive and solve all the way along. And I'm holding them accountable to their most important goals.
Maybe now is a good time for you to maybe give us a bit of a overview of your new book. And the new book is structured around five bridges. Maybe you can share with us where did the inspiration come from and why did you specifically chose to focus on these five bridges?
Yeah. So when everything came crashing down for me, I had this really, man, strong epiphany. So I walk out of the Marriott hotel. My email shut down. I'm told I'm not allowed to go back to the office that I own the lease on. My name's literally on the lease for 35,000 square feet and on the hook, and I'm not allowed to go back there. So they ship me my boxes, all my stuff via a moving company. And it was, I don't even know how long after it was, but I couldn't open the boxes for like a month. I just, too much shame, just too much. I didn't want to deal with it. Whatever. So 30 days or a month later, I finally get the courage to go open those boxes. And I had this really strong epiphany as I opened them. It was all just stuff. My accolades, my trophies, the degrees that hung on my wall, all that different stuff was if I had died today, my wife would have had to deal with the stuff. It's not going with me. And then I realized I screwed some things up along the way. Was I chasing or pursuing a relationship with God as strongly as I was pursuing my own professional accolades? Was I pursuing my wife as much as I was pursuing my goals? Was my time and attention as strong on my kids as it was on my calendar? And the sad answer to all those questions was no. And so I realized, I thought that everything was taken away from me. But in reality, I still had my health. I still had my marriage. I still had my kids. So everything professionally was taken away from me. But I didn't prioritize the things that were most important to me like I did my work. And that's where the five bridges really came from. It was like bridge number one is the spiritual bridge. If I'm not right with God and my purpose here on this planet, then nothing else is right. And the spiritual bridge was born like that. And I talk to people that don't believe what I believe. And I just say, like, we've all been to a funeral or a visitation, um, and noticed that the body is present, but the spirit is gone, which was what was once a vibrant, living human being, now is just a body. And so at the core of everything, we got to know that we have a spirit inside of us. And so whatever your spiritual calling is understanding what that is and not just being complacent about it, not just saying, well, I'm here. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here right now. Like having some sort of centering balance in your life, whether that's God or Mother Earth. I don't know for you, but whatever it is, finding and centering on that so that you can come back to it. Which led me to bridge two. So this one's kind of controversial, but only because of what society teaches us about this stuff. So bridge two I call internal, but it's your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. We're often told that if we take care of our physical well-being or our mental or emotional well-being, we're being selfish because we're putting ourselves before others. When actually it's the most selfless thing we can do. Because if I'm not my best, I can't be the very best for Stoyan and his audience right now. If I'm not my best personally, mentally, emotionally, physically, I can't be the husband or father that I want to be. I can't be the leader for my employees that I want to be. So we have to take care of ourselves. Anytime we get on an airplane, they tell us in case of emergency, oxygen mask will drop. Put yours on first before assisting others. Why? Well, you can't assist others if you're passed out or dead. So we have to take care of ourselves first. So that's bridge number two. Bridge number three is relationships. It's the fruit of life. Now, I have an order to these, and your order may be different, but it's important to know what your order is. My order is God first, myself second, my spouse or your spouse if you have one, your kids if you have them, and then everyone else. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs are placing everyone else before God, themselves, and their family because they have to provide for their family and they have the responsibility of making sure that all these people have a paycheck so they can provide for their families. You can have both. You got to prioritize the right things. When we get to bridge four, this is the bridge everyone likes to skip to. Now, we've all been asked the question when we were little, what do you want to be when you grow up? I've made the mistake of asking my kids that same question, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's the wrong question. I would prefer the question, who do you want to be when you grow up? Because all of us, when we get into schooling, they go, well, what are you going to go to college for? And or university, as the Europeans would say. And then what are you going to do with that degree? And it's all surrounded around the what. And therefore, we get trapped in our work is our identity when that's only a piece of who we are. But I was the owner of that firm. I was the entrepreneur and I thought I lost everything. Or someone that was a professional athlete that can no longer play that sport. That's taken away from them. Who are they now when they're not that professional athlete? Or someone was in the military and they transition out of the military. They lose that identity because they framed it in what they do and not who they are. But the environment bridge four is your professional world, your financial world, and your creative and your joy. But that's the bridge everyone skips to, and they particularly focus on those first two things, the professional and financial. Now, if we get these first four bridges right, bridge five is our legacy. Our legacy, there's two things people get wrong about legacy. One is they think it's 30 years from today because we're all cognizant that we could die today. We just don't think it's going to be us. So they think that legacy is some distant place in the future. And then the other thing that they get wrong about it is they think it's about the things they leave behind. So let me dispel both those myths. One is it's not what you leave behind. the things you leave behind. It's what you leave in others. And the other piece of this is you are leaving your legacy every day you're blessed to wake up through every interaction you have, through every action you take, or every action you don't take. You are leaving your legacy every single day. Now, what if you were more cognizant about the legacy that you wanted to leave every single day instead of thinking that it's 30 years off? How do you want to leave a piece of yourself behind today? And that's the core framework that we coach from now, from those five bridges as well, Stoyan.
So do you also do that in your coaching with entrepreneurs? Like you don't
Yeah.
immediately go to, okay, let's talk about revenue, sales, whatever. You want to give them the full picture first and get these things in place.
Yeah, we'll ask about questions. We'll ask questions on revenue and profits and all the different things to figure out where their focus is going to be. But I'm always grading them. Where's your gaps and your bridges? So, for instance, for your audience, if you go to joshkosnick.com, you'll see an assessment pop up, and we call this the Life Quotient Assessment. It's utterly free, but what we want to do is it'll give you a score on it's 84 questions. It'll give you a score on your five bridges and then a totality score. So you can actually see where your gaps are, whether it's in the spiritual bridge or the internal bridge, relationships, environment, or legacy. We can see where that gap is and we can start to coach to close that gap.
Thank you for sharing, man. It's a great resource. We're gonna put it in the description of the podcast. So everybody who wants to get a bit of an assessment, make sure to check out the webpage, do the assessment, see where you are, and if you need any additional support, make sure to get in touch with Josh and his team. I'm sure it's gonna be super super valuable. Josh, maybe we can share some more um, from your personal sort of toolkit, some ideas. So bridge number one, the spiritual bridge. What did you do when you realized I'm not uh, I'm not spending enough time committed to God and to my faith? What are you doing these days? Like specifically, do you have do you allocate more time to pray? Do you go to church? Like what specifically did you decide to, or do you just engage being more godful in anything you do? I'm just curious if you can share some, again, practical ideas for people listening.
Yeah, that's a really good question because for everyone it's different. Um, I would say that in my early life, I was a believer in God, but not a follower of God. And then you get into this hard charging entrepreneurial world and you're trying to control everything. You think you can control everything. And then you quickly realize that there's a lot of things outside of my control. In fact, I started teaching this framework as there's three businesses on the planet. There's your business, there's others' business, and there's God's business. And only one of those you can control, which is your business. You can't control others and you can't control God's business. So why do we spend so much time in others' business or God's business when there's only one we can control? So that's one thing. It's really hard for a type A driven person like myself. So I've been working a lot on surrender. Practical things as yes, I'm in the Bible more often than I was previously. I want God in my head before I get in my head. So each morning, that is part of my routine is to get into the Word and understand what the Holy Spirit has for me that day. But then, furthermore, I joined a men's Bible study, and they're all entrepreneurs, and we meet every Tuesday evening. And so we're going through the same things. We have the same beliefs, and we're digging deeper, and we hold each other accountable. We formed a great brotherhood around it. But digging deeper into our faith with like-minded people has been a game changer for me. And then, furthermore, is seeking that prayer throughout the day. I heard a pastor once talk about how we say amen at the end of prayers, like we're closing that out. And he just posed the question, what if we didn't close the prayer out and we were just in active prayer with God all day because that's what God wants with us is a relationship. So what if we were just in active prayer all day long and seeking God's wisdom all day long? And it was just a really good positioning or thought process for me to think through is like, Why am I reserving my conversations with God only to prayer or only when I'm in the Word when I can be having this amazing relationship all day long? Any roadblock that pops up, any vision that pops into my head, is that God driven or is that me driven? Like, just be an active participant in that relationship more often. Whereas plenty of Christians, and this is where a lot of them get a bad name, is they go to church on Sundays and then they're godless the rest of the week. That's not actually being a follower. That's not being an active participant in your faith. That's just going through the motions.
It's just like a checklist.
Yeah. Yep, did that. So I went to church, so I should be good for the week. Nope, it's not. I grew up when my family I'm the oldest of 4, 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. When we were heavy into sports, we were a family that would show up on Easter or Christmas. I should say Easter and Christmas. We would go those 2 times a year. And because sports kept getting in the way of different things, as I got older, and had my own family, like, we're making that more of a priority, but it's really a priority too to find the right church. So I tell people that are exploring their faith all the time, is like, hey, go church dating, because I've had a lot of friends that have some church hurt growing up, whether they grew up in the Catholic Church and were kind of preached guilt and shame, or they were in a different church where the pastor was just not a good person. They have some church hurt, so they didn't necessarily lose their belief, but they lost their faith in some of the churches that are across the world. And I say, well, don't let that get in the way of your faith, and make sure that you find a church that feels like home to you, where you do resonate with the messages, where the pastor is a good person, where the guilt and shame isn't being piled upon you, and you're actually following the word of God and not some human being in our time, not following their misconceptions of God's word.
How has your, in what way has your life improved after you decided to commit and to reconnect with God?
I mean, the general answer is in every way, but specifically, I think through like this roadblock, this massive roadblock that I was thrown. I look at this and it's like there was a whisper I got from God when I'm sitting, like, laying in bed crying, like the first week after I'm terminated and everything's taken away from me. And I can only describe it as a whisper that could only come from God. Like, it was this voice in my head that wasn't mine. So I didn't see a Holy Spirit. I didn't have Jesus sitting next to me. Like, it was literally just a profound voice in my head that wasn't mine. And it said 2 words: "You're free." And I didn't know what it meant at the time. And I certainly didn't want to hear it, because I thought I was living my purpose. I thought I was doing what I was intended to do for the next 20 years. But after that, like, knowing, getting through the pain, getting through the things, and starting out on this next vision, I have a much more, or a much better understanding of what that voice was. It's like I'm able to impact so many more people outside of the financial world. Like, I had a profound impact on 250 people within my organization, and I spoke across the company, but it was within one company that my impact was limited to. Now my impact is limited. Like, I'm on a podcast in a foreign country right now. Like, that's a profound impact. When God said you're free, like, you and I would not be having this conversation right now if what happened to me didn't happen to me. Right? So, like, that's where I go back to, sometimes the worst things that happen to you were the best things that happen for you if you're following in God's plan. My plan was to run that company from 35 to 55. Excuse me. God's plan was, at 41, you're going to go on a different path. And his plan is so much better than ours if we just slow down and listen. So, one of the things I didn't mention is I used to do rucks in the morning with my AirPods in. And I was being that hard charging entrepreneur of like, well, I'm doing multiple things. I'm getting some exercise. I'm listening to a podcast. One of the most profound things I did was take the AirPods out of my head and just walk with the 60 pounds on my back and listen to God and listen to my own voice and just be in silence. That was one of the most profound things I did. because now I can have that conversation and have silence. Because what I realized is I didn't have silence throughout the day. As soon as I got done with that ruck, the kids are waking up, I'm getting them to school, then I'm off to the farm and go to work for the rest of the day, and then I get a workout in, I come back home, and it's all noise again. There was no silence. So that ruck time was is my silence, and, it was I think that more people need to find that silence in their life so they can actually slow down and listen versus just constantly go, 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 and hope that they're running in the right direction.
Did you feel like you build a muscle? Because I feel like we are so impatient, but it's also partly there's so much stimulation, there's so much noise, and we're used to it. And at the moment that you don't have your headphones, your phone battery is dead, it feels like, oh, I need something to get stimulated. A
Yeah.
conversation, my phone, a podcast. Do you feel like you can build this muscle back?
Yeah, you can actually. There's a study done called, or they talked about the dopamine nation. That's what we're in with the stimulation right now with our phones. And they knew exactly what they were doing when they created these things. Like, we're on them. That's why advertisers are on the phone all the time as well. Um, but that being said, there was another study done in the 70s here in the United States called Parenting Effectiveness Techniques, PET. And what they found was that as parents, and I use this in leadership with companies because it's very analogous to being parents as it is to leading employees. But what they found was that parents need to have a simple set of rules. They need to lead by action, not just talk, and they need to repeat themselves often. And what they found in the study is they need to repeat themselves 7 times for the child to hear them the first time. Very similar in the work life. You need to repeat your if you've ever as a leader, if you've ever found yourself repeating yourself, be like, "I've told you this before." They didn't hear you the first time, but by the 7th time, they may have heard you. Well, they redid this study about 10 to 15 years ago. Guess what the, amount of times you have to repeat yourself now is?
15.
35.
No,
So
man,
7
really?
times more. 7 times more because of all the distractions, because of the influences, because of the, distractions and all the different things that come at us at any given time, the dings on our phone, the vibrations, all the different things, trying to suckle at our attention, we now have to repeat ourselves about 35 times. So what I tell leaders are, regardless of your title, if you're CEO, COO, CFO, manager, whatever, you're also CRO, Chief Reminding Officer, as you have to constantly be reminding your people of the right thing to do, of the way to go about it, of your values, of your vision, whatever it may be. You have to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And here's how you'll know when they've heard you. They'll start mocking you. They'll start mocking you or making fun of you in some way. And insecure leader will be like, "Oh, they're making fun of me." A secure leader goes, "Ah, you finally heard me."
It's interesting. This podcast is called the Productivity Mastery, and often we talk to people, and they'll say they think that productivity is about doing more and having more on your to-do list and being busy, but the essence of productivity is actually editing. Like the mastery of productivity is to be clear what actually matters, but also to be able to protect the essence, the essential from everything else, all the distraction, all the demands, all the noise. It's interesting that people still think like, oh, how can I do more? Well, it's not about doing more. And maybe Josh, you can give us some advice also on the second bridge. Because you probably haven't mentioned during the podcast, but you're married, you have 4 kids, you have your company, and at the same time, you seem to be in a really good shape physically. Um, Seems like your energy is high, so that means you're doing the work. You're finding
Yeah,
the time. People always say, "Oh, I don't have the time," but seems like you do have the time because it's a priority.
yeah,
Well, what do you do to be able to manage such a complex life?
yeah. You don't find the time, you make the time, right? So one of the first things I did when I finally got through my legal battle with my company and negotiated the exit, I did 75 hard for the first time. Now, 75 hard is the most popular mental transformation program in the world. Like if you search 75 hard, if you haven't heard of it, or any of your listeners haven't heard of it, you will see billions of hits, billions. And the reason is, so I did this for the first time. I had heard of it. It was invented by a guy that I'm mentored by out of St. Louis, Missouri, Andy Frisella. And he did it for himself because he was running a supplement company and he was massively overweight. So he saw himself as a fraud. He's speaking all over the world. What he came to be pissed about at that moment was that none of his friends called him out. He had to call himself out. Right? So he calls himself out. He goes on this journey, he transforms his mind and his body. In 75 hard, you have to do two 45-minute workouts a day. One of them has to be outside. You have to drink a gallon of water a day. You have to read 10 pages of nonfiction a day, no alcohol. And then you choose the diet, but you have to stick to the diet for 75 days, no cheat meals. Right? So it's a flexible program where you're dictating, the diet and all that stuff, but the workouts in and of themselves, what I tell you is that in Wisconsin in the winter it's cold, and I chose to do it in the winter. January is when I started, and so rucking outside, trudging through snow, all the different things. You stay healthier, you stay mentally healthier and sharper, and you get to the end of this program that most people won't do, and you feel like an absolute badass. Your mind is completely shifted, it's clear, it's focused. So I did that, I've done that 3 times while doing all the things you said as a father and husband and, as a business owner. I did it all. Now here's how you do it. You get your want-tos in your calendar before your have-tos. And your want-tos are your workouts, your spiritual time, your kids' events, your date night with your spouse. Whatever your priorities are want-tos wise, those go on your calendar first. Because as high achieving people, our have-tos will get done. Doesn't matter the time, we're going to get them done. So if you have 12 hours to get them done, it may take you 12 hours. But if you only have 4 hours, you're going to be highly efficient in that 4 hours. And so what 75 hard really teaches you is not only the mental toughness, and yes, you get in better shape because you're doing 2 workouts a day, but what it really teaches you is how much time you were wasting. You get really laser focused when you're actually putting that much into a day and checking off those tasks every single day along with your busy life. You realize, hey, I've been missing the boat. I have screwed some things up prioritization wise, and you get laser focused on what the true priorities are for your career and your personal life. But don't gloss over that example I gave you of the want tos and the have tos, because my girls are competitive dancers. Their competitions are already in my calendar for next year. So if Stoyan asked me to speak in Europe and that happens to fall in the time that that dance competition is, I'm going to say no. But if it falls into a time where, I can make it, I'll say yes. But, like, those are the things we gotta pay attention to is we don't schedule over those because those are where our relationships are. We need to prioritize our kids and our family, and we need to prioritize our health. Because if you're 50 years old and overweight and a business owner, and you keel over from a heart attack, how are you serving your people? Right? So we have to figure out what our want tos are, prioritize those, and make sure they're in our calendar before our have tos, because our have tos will get done.
Love that, man. I don't think I've heard anybody say it in the way you did. No, I think most people start with the must do, blocking the important meetings, the clients, the all these kind of things, and eventually the want to will fall somewhere in the calendar. But
It
starting with the
doesn't though.
want tos, right, right, it just keep postponing, and it's like Christmas, and you're like, okay, next year I'm gonna be different, and I'm gonna maybe do it
Yeah.
for, yeah, true, bad. That's true. What about afterwards? Okay, so let's say you block all these important things. You have a pretty good plan for how to focus on these 5 bridges, but more like on a weekly, on a daily basis. Do you have any kind of a prioritization process? Like you do a list, or like how do you make sure that everything important is there in your calendar?
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy once you have it identified. So someone may not deem like they may be in a relationships may not be as important to them right now, that relationship bridge, because they're not married and don't have kids. So they're just fully focused on their career. Okay, but what gap are you missing? Is it internal? Is it legacy building? Like, which gap are you missing right now, but that we can work on there? I think it's better to look on a weekly basis than a daily basis. Although it might be nice to get to a daily where I have time for all these 5 things. But where are the gaps? What gap are we trying to close? And then have we prioritized that within the week? Like, for instance, if it's spiritual, are you waking up early enough and just getting a couple paragraphs read in your Bible? Or is it, more mental? You need to work through something. Are you giving yourself time to journal? Did you if it's more serious, have you booked an appointment with a therapist, and is that on your calendar? Right? We gotta prioritize that because, again, if you're not right, you can't be the best for others, right? So there's certain things that we have to look at on a weekly basis to make sure that we're prioritizing the priorities. There's one other way I do this, and it just came to mind. Everyone has a to-do list. But there's a variety of priorities on those to-dos. So I coined a long time ago, I made myself a today list and a to-do list. So 2 different lists, but the today list may have had 3 to 5 things. Like, this has to get done today. No waiting, and I'm ADD, so, like, I'm the king of procrastination. At least I was in school. So today list was really important to me. This can't wait. I have to get it done today. To-do list had a 7-day window. Because to-do list wasn't as high priority, didn't need to be done today. That I can add to. But my today list, those 3 to 5 things, these get done, and I can say to myself, "I won the day." So many people get to the end of their day, and they're like, "Man, I was really busy, but what did I get done today?" How about we answer that question by saying at the start of each day or the day before, we list what are the 3 to 5 things that I need to get done tomorrow or today, as if I'm doing it in the morning, and if we check those things off, like, boom, I won the day. And you can go home feeling fulfilled instead of wondering, hey, did I really get anything done today? That's a shitty feeling. Let's go to I won the day or I lost the day because I chose to kick the bucket on one of my most important tasks. And let's actually put together a streak of winning days.
It's a great system, man. So let me try to understand. So um, for those people listening that are feeling a little bit off track now, maybe, or even for the people who are feeling on track, um, your suggestion is to, let's say, have a look at these 5 bridges on a weekly basis and give a little bit of an assessment. I love assessments, and I come from mathematics, so for me, numbers work. For example, I love to give myself a number from 1 to 10, rate
Yep.
myself for, and like looking at your system, I'll probably do that, right? Like, how did I score this week in each of these 5 areas, 5 bridges? And then I give myself a grade, which is subjective, but it's good enough for me to help me identify the gaps. And then from there, I can um, generate specific activities, ideas of how I can approach the next week or month, so I can fill in the gaps. Is that how would you approach it?
Yeah. And we actually, just so you know, we give a score on 0 to 100, right? So on each of the
Interesting.
bridges, as well as the totality score. So for everyone's reference, you cannot score 100 on this assessment. Like, even if you're trying to cheat it and you're the most arrogant person on the planet and you put all fives, you're not going to get 100. And you're going to be like, what? I only got a 94. Yeah, because we never arrive there. Like, I don't care if you're me, the creator of the assessment in the 5 bridges, or anyone else. There's not a point where we go, yep, checked off a list. I am good, great to go. There's no room for improvement. There's none of that. So the point is that, and you're going to go through seasons of life. You may have a major loss in your life. You may have a major issue like I had with my business. Like, that will change your score based on the mental funk you're in or impact on your financials. Whatever it may be, it's going to impact your score. So that's why I made it free so that you can take it at least once a year or maybe once a quarter if you're working on a specific thing to close the gap. is to continue to take it and use it maybe as an annual planning focus, as we're kind of in annual planning season here at the end. I always call fourth quarter annual planning season for the next year. um, Take it and make sure that you address what are the gaps and formulate a plan going into 2026.
I love it, man. Josh, thank you so much. I wasn't planning to ask you this question, but it came out of somewhere. So I do want to ask you because I think this is something many people are struggling with these days. The question has two parts, perhaps. The first part is, have you ever been a people pleaser? And what's your advice to people who are struggling to say no?
Mm. All right. So no, I've never been a people pleaser. Uh, and it's funny, I've taken Shirzad Shamin's assessment on positive intelligence. That rates you on 1 to 10. I'm a 0.6% people pleaser. So very, very low. Uh, and the reason being is, I think younger in my life, I was a sales manager at Best Buy, which massive retailer store, way bigger back then than it is today. And and I used to struggle with contentious conversations, hard conversations. And I realized that that wasn't serving, that just delayed the inevitable, or made it a bigger problem. So then I overswung the pendulum and I became too blunt and honest. And I had to figure out that middle where I could have a contentious conversation and still be respectful. Right. So I learned that balance in that regard. But for those that are struggling to say no, here's the best advice for you. You need to understand what your core focus is, your top three priorities are. So I'll give you an example real time from my firm. I had four priorities. I literally kept them on my screen, so in my office, so that if someone came into my office and asked me for something or asked me to do something, I'd look at those and go, does it have to fall in one of these four? And if it doesn't, my answer was easy. It was no. So my four were recruit the best talent, develop that talent endlessly, build a phenomenal culture, and run really strong financials. And what I realized as I started coaching, that wasn't just great for a CEO of a financial firm, that was great for a CEO of any firm, those four things. And so I was very clear on my purpose and my four priorities and my vision, so that if someone had a off the wall task or idea for me, I could go back to those, pass it through the filter. It didn't fit. I'm sorry, I have to say no, but here's who you should talk to. And you can do this in your personal life, you can do this in your professional life, but it's really understanding what are your values, what's your core focus or mission, what's your vision, and what are your top few 3 to 5 priorities. Those are your filtering mechanism to say yes or no to any outside influence.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. That's been such a brilliant conversation. Super grateful for all the advice, all the stories, all the examples, practical and tactical tools. I want to give you the opportunity here to share with the listeners of the podcast once again, where can they find your book, but also in what other ways you and your team can support them on the journey.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's been an awesome conversation. At Josh Kosnick on all social media stuff. I have a newsletter that goes out via LinkedIn. Um, I put out a ton of free content. Like, I just want to impact the world in a positive way. That's part of my legacy, helping people learn some tough lessons through my experience. And obviously, the Kairos Code, my story, I was very vulnerable in the book to make sure that I was sharing from the journey that bad things are going to happen, and it's how you overcome them and build and learn those lessons and apply those lessons from those difficult spots in your life. And yeah, th- coaching. If you're ever in the United States, I have a 80-acre leadership retreat. Would love to host anyone out here. It's a beautiful, beautiful property. You get to detach from these computer screens and fluorescent lights and tap back into nature. So there's a lot
How
of
many
different
people?
ways.
How many people join these retreats usually? Like, how big are the groups?
We usually keep it in between 12 and 20.
Hmm.
When we do specific 2-day events like that. I ran a big event in August this past year where it was my book launch, and had some of my world-class speaker friends come into town, and there's 200 people there. I have a horse arena that's 12,000 square feet, so we can fit a lot of people. But really, when we run those immersions, it's 12 to 20 because it's intimate enough where we're getting to know each other at a deep level, and not too large where people get lost in the shuffle.
Appreciate it, Josh. Anybody, make sure to get a copy of the book. Make sure to check out the assessment on the webpage of Josh and follow him on all social medias. I mean, look at the energy, the wisdom, the everything that and the thing that I appreciate most is you can sense when the person on the other side of the screen is sharing from the heart. And I mean it, man. Like you're not holding on anything. You're vulnerable, you're open, and you really want to help. And I think that's where transformation begins.
Mm.
So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being with us.
appreciate you.
Thanks everybody for being with us once again. Another episode, 231 episodes now. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. That way you help us to bring incredible personalities like Josh. Once again, make sure to, Josh, can you show us the book for one final time? Make sure to check out the book, The Kairos Code by Josh Kosnick. And see you guys once again next week. Have a great Friday. Bye-bye.